Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the B-Side podcast, where we discuss business, blockchain, and of course, Bitcoin. Together with me is Muhammad Bana, serial entrepreneur and advisor to family offices and ultra high net worth individuals about everything related to Bitcoin. So it's a pleasure having you, Muhammad. Nice.
Hi,
Thank you for
Jacob. How are
joining.
you doing?
Yeah, pretty good, pretty good. Although
Yeah,
I believe we are both in a very hot environment those days. Also, in terms of the market, um, uh, unlike I would say previous years, usually going a bit slower in the summertime. This year is
yeah,
actually full of surprises and full of events happening in the space, especially because of the domination of the recent bigger institutions getting into
yeah.
and
It was
understanding Bitcoin. So
quite a milestone to see the ETFs getting approved in early January
yeah,
by the SEC. So everyone had hopes and dreams that this will happen someday, and hitting that milestone for Bitcoiners who's been in the journey for the last 15 years or less, it really was a good achievement, I think.
yeah, I think it's a really massive thing, and I think we just see the very beginning of how it unravels in the next couple of years because those guys are here for the long time. So unlike
Yeah.
many passengers, what we call them in the Bitcoin space, I think these are different animals here in the landscape. But let's kick it off and let's start with your journey. How did you end up in the blockchain space and especially in the Bitcoin space? What brought you in?
Okay. So I think my journey started in early 2016 when Bitcoin was around $5,000. Okay. And we're just sitting around with some friends and someone mentioned Bitcoin. I bought a few. Within 3 months, it went up 50% in a space of 3 months. I was in the gym. I saw my phone. I was like, oh, I'm up 50%. It's too good to be true because nothing in the traditional business world gives you 50% return in 3 months. I stopped the
Yeah.
treadmill. I went to the cafe in the gym, sat there and sold out. And I forgot about it. So I missed the run up after that to 20,000, and then it turned and crashed down right to like 4 digits. So
Yeah.
I kind of forgot about it. But in early 2020, when COVID started, okay, around March, I was looking for something to invest in, a small amount of money, because the whole world was in shutdown. Everyone's sitting at home. You're sitting watching YouTube, trying to understand what is this black swan event, of COVID,
Yeah.
once in 100 years. I mean, we've never seen something like that in our lives, where airports and harbors were shut down. Literally,
Yeah.
no containers were moving in the ports. So, that kind of freaked me out mentally from an economics point of view, or being a businessman, being an entrepreneur. You're like, there's no flow of commodities into the country. And at that stage, I was in South Africa. And, instead of sitting like everyone else on TikTok and scrolling, or making videos and baking and maybe watching Netflix, I was sitting on YouTube Googling what are hedge funds doing, right? And I came across the famous Raoul Pal from Real Vision,
Ah, yeah.
and,
Hmm.
I started
Super smart
absorbing.
guy.
Yeah, super smart guy. Everyone's got an opinion on everyone, but I mean, I like to take the good from everyone. And, here's a guy in Cayman Islands who's retired at 32 and giving you his perspective. And I used to sit and watch him till like 4 in the morning at one stage, right? And just absorbing every sentence he was saying. And I think the first thing I did was buy gold. I bought physical gold, right? A small amount. Uh, the challenge, literally, once you take delivery of physical gold, is where do you store it? Yes, you need a vault. But at that stage, I had just canceled my vault, contract in South Africa, because it's so dangerous to have a physical vault in South Africa. Even though you put
Yeah.
stuff for safekeeping, people can follow you out of the vault, once you leave. So it just didn't make sense, right? And I think I'm between, that age where You've got
Yeah.
the youth on this side and you've got the older generation on that side. And I like to play in between and listen, put my ear on the ground to see what the youth are doing. So the second month I came across Bitcoin again. And then I was like, hold on, I had this from 2016 and I sold it 3 months later at a 50%. But I realized had I not sold it, even though it had, went in a bear market and came up, I would have been in a phenomenal profit position, like
Return.
over
Yeah, absolutely.
150% return. And if you work out in a space of 32 months, okay, as a traditional businessman, I'm third generation business in South Africa, right? My grandfather was in business, my dad's in business, and being third generation, getting 150% return in 3 years is a very good return. So I was like, hold on, I need to go down this rabbit hole,
Deeper.
what they call the
Yeah.
rabbit hole, deeper, right? And I started absorbing more YouTube. Obviously, there's Max Kaiser there, who's quite, eccentric. We've always heard him. But I started getting more into the fundamentals and then the technicals, right? And I started buying small drops. I then went on to do this, some online courses. And I did a MIT cryptocurrency course, which was very intense. Funny enough, Gary Gesner was our
Was
lecturer
one of
at
the
MIT. Okay. So it was recorded videos, but you're listening to Gary Gesner, you're listening to guys from Galaxy Digital, you're listening to quite a few, top guys who have, really excelled nowadays. And, listening to, I couldn't read the Bitcoin Standard, so I bought the audiobook. I used to walk on the beachfront every morning and listen to it.
sure.
I actually, look, it's very intense, that the Bitcoin Standard. I just feel like they could be a simpler version. It's too in depth sometimes. Okay, for normal people that are not passionate to absorb. Then I went. I just started going deeper. So I reached the point when I think it was August 2020, and Michael Saylor came on board, right? And he announced that he's bought
The
it.
purchase.
The thing was, even though I started in early March, April, right? So March I bought gold, April I bought Bitcoin, and then I started going deep into it. By then the ports opened. I managed to get all my goods through the port in my normal business. But as I started selling out, I just started moving all my funds back into Bitcoin, right? And that was the start of this bull market. And it's like, as they say, what you take crazy pills, right? Because every day you look at your phone and you're like, is there something wrong on my phone? How can it be up on
10,
these figures?
15%, 20%.
10,
Yeah,
15%
exactly.
a day, okay?
A day, yeah.
But getting to this, when I heard Michael Saylor give an explanation why he bought Bitcoin, okay? And, I'll say it here for the listeners. Michael Saylor's a CEO of a company. At that time, he was sitting for 28 years as a CEO. That's the longest standing CEO on that stock exchange. I think it's the NASDAQ he's on, right?
It's not.
So,
Yeah.
so sitting on as a CEO for 28 years in a company, that alone is an achievement, right? And he's got an MIT qualification. He comes from an engineering background. He runs a software company. When he gave the explanation about why he took $460 million off his balance sheet that was sitting in cash reserves and move it into Bitcoin, it like reaffirmed all my beliefs and research, right? Because let's be honest, when you start your journey of Bitcoin, it's all in your head. There's not many people around you can talk about it, because no one's going to, unless they're researching at that pace with you, like what is money, what is the characteristics of money, what is money printing, what is the Nixon shocks, how we came off the gold standard, that how much debt is the dollar in $33 trillion. So you start going through this. But Michael Saylor, I would call it like, in our religion, when we go to mosque, right, we have what you call a priest. In Christianity, we say, okay, this is, or a rabbi in Judaism, we say this is a Molana, or the leader of the congregation. When I heard Michael Saylor, I was like, okay, this is the leader for Bitcoin. As much as there was people before him, the way he explained it, it just reaffirmed all my beliefs that I had for the previous 6 months. So that that gave me much more confidence. Like, that you're not the crazy dude. Here's a guy that's on the stock exchange and he's coming to the same conclusion. So that was the journey of my start. Okay. And
Yeah,
as they say, once you take the orange pill, okay, or
there's no way
once you
back.
see it, yeah, and I love to say that, always refer back to the Matrix, right? Like the movie,
Yeah.
which a lot of Bitcoiners, funny enough, after I discovered Bitcoin, I went back and I watched episode 1, 2, and 3 with my wife. Okay. And then you realize it is a documentary. It's not a movie. Okay.
True.
And
So true. Yeah. I mean, I I'm really fascinated with the journey because it's really hard to start on your own getting into this and going deep because it's so much that we are not educated about.
hmm,
It's all about both technology and the money. And the money is basically like a taboo topic in
hmm,
schools or academics or everywhere. So I
hmm,
believe that it just requires like a very curious mind to do this digging. And of course, with people such as Michael Saylor, as you mentioned, our perspective changes much, much faster. I mean, the guy is absolute legend
hmm.
at this stage. But going from there, so you moved from being an entrepreneur and investor to becoming an advisor and kind of a
Okay.
teacher also to other people. Can you just expand a bit more about it and who you're dealing with and what is their perspective when they first time, face
I think
um, even the phrase of Bitcoin?
where it starts is when you on that journey, early journey, and you're seeing the light, all right? The first people you start talking is your immediate family, and you feel
Yeah,
like you want to show them, any improvement, if you share with your loved ones, right? So even if there's like nowadays, if there's a new vitamin or a new tablet that's getting discovered, like there's this new thing shilajit that everyone's talking about or whatever. So I
yeah.
started talking a lot about Bitcoin at our family gatherings, right? And funny enough, I must show you this, my sisters actually bought me this mug. Okay.
What does it say? What does it say?
It
Warning.
says,
Uh, ra may randomly start talking about Bitcoin. That's actually the
yeah,
best.
okay. And, we have our Friday prayer at mosque. And after that, the family has a lunch together. And it reached a point where they had to tell me, can you please not talk about Bitcoin on the family lunch? Because it's the same topic every week. Like we need to talk about something else. And, you know, being a, being deep into Bitcoin, I'm sure you can understand. It's like you feel you owe it to them to save them.
True,
Like you really feel
true.
like I'm trying
You're
to show you how to get
you're
out of this matrix,
you're
right?
making like making them a favor, like yeah, like showing them the way out that is like inevitable and really good for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely
Okay.
understand the
And
feeling.
let me tell you this. Okay. People will hear you, they listen, but you can explain things to people, but you cannot make people understand. I think that's a
Yeah,
very important point in this podcast. Okay, I'm going to say it again. You can explain things to people, but you cannot make people understand. So then what happened? Okay, especially with a lot of people close to me, when Bitcoin continued to run up, right, over the next year up to 69,000, I've got people very close to me that then did not go, did not call me, did not ask my advice, and went on their own and bought the Bitcoin at the all-time high. And I was like, why did you not even call me or ask the advice? Because they thought, oh, this thing's going up, without understanding the fundamentals or the technicals of it. Okay, like the
and
cycles, the
the
4-year
cycles.
cycles, the
Yeah, yeah.
halvings, and the FOMO part of the cycle. So coming back to this, I then, I was in a small community in Durban, the small town Durban, and I think because you reach a point also, I was about 40 years old at that time, I'm 42 now. You ask yourself, listen, besides chasing money in your life, okay, and what do you want to do with your life, like your day, what do you enjoy? Like, I really enjoy talking to you on this podcast. Okay, so you can't see yourself in a traditional business selling clothing, which is a 3-generation family business concept, right? We used to import clothing and manufacture. It's a whole vertical operation system we had. You want to just talk about Bitcoin and spread the word. So I opened this
Yeah.
company called Global Institute of Wealth, right? And I decided to have an event just for 20 people, okay, at my
Mm-hmm.
house, and say introduction to cryptocurrencies. And it was just a small event, just saying, come to this event. You pay a small amount for tickets, like $20 or something, right? And when I sent that out on WhatsApp, there was a WhatsApp that went around saying, "Oh, I'm going to try and scam people." Okay. And that message then went to my parents, and they called me and they're like, "What the hell are you up to?" And do you know how, what would you say, demotivating, or how,
Yeah.
upset you
Uh,
get because you're trying to help people, introduce them to cryptocurrencies and show them the technicals and the fundamentals. So I think that frustration made me just jump on a plane, decide where in the world is crypto adoption, or crypto legislation easier. And I flew to Dubai. I spent a
hmm.
week here driving around with my wife, right? So we left the kids, we drove around. I was like, okay, we actually went to DIFC, to the innovation hub, okay? And, we walked around this place. I went to DMCC, and I then, I went to Mecca, I prayed, I went home, I sold all my assets that I could. And this was in October. And by March, I arrived in Dubai with my family. Okay.
Whoa.
Uh, so, yeah, we started a whole new chapter, arrived here. And, it was a bit of a challenge with the family, staying in a hotel for first 20 days, trying to get a, what you say, Emirates ID, get your license, get a
Sure.
house, find the schools. Once that was done, I sent the kids back home and I flew with my wife to Miami. Okay. So I went to the Bitcoin conference,
The
and,
Bitcoin conference.
yeah, the Bitcoin conference 2023. And we were in a very bear market at that time. Okay. So it was a much smaller conference. There was like only 20,000 people, much less than the year before. Okay.
Yeah.
And I must share the story about something I manifested. So before I left for Miami, I went to this date shop called Batil. Okay. I don't know
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
know it. They sell these
Yeah.
dates.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Super,
I
super
bought
popular
these,
in Dubai.
yeah, I bought 6 of these, or 5 or 6 of these gift boxes, right?
Yeah.
Really nice gift boxes in gold and with the packets. And my wife's asking me, okay, why are you buying this? And I was like, no, I'm buying one for Michael Saylor. I'm buying for, VJ Boyapati and Saifuddin Amos. And, she's probably looking at me like, are you off your head? Okay. And I kid you not, right? I I used to carry it with me in my hand luggage every day when I used to go to the conference. And I managed to give almost every single one of it to the right person. So I managed to find Michael Saylor, went up to him, gave him this gift and said, listen, I bought this for you. And I managed to gift one to Saifuddin Amos. And, that's, like in your life, you have these
Hmm.
highlight moments, okay? It's not about the money. It's about something that was close to your, that gave you fulfillment, right? Because
Yeah.
Michael Saylor never saw me in his life before. He doesn't know what effect he's had on me, or Saifuddin Amos, or, just by writing a book. They don't know how many lives they're changing. Okay. So the gift was the least I could do. But it just also showed me that when you dream of something, right? Like how they say, you can't dream of winning the lottery if you don't buy the ticket. Okay.
Hmm.
So, I mean, I was sitting in South Africa 2 years before that, or 3 years before that, watching Michael Saylor. The least I would never expect to ever meet him, right? But that was a nice moment, being at the Bitcoin conference, also taking my wife to the conference. What that did is also made her understand more about Bitcoin and see, okay, there's also another 20,000 crazy people just like my husband here.
It's a
Okay.
massive community. There's a massive community
Yes.
that's really different mindset people.
Yeah.
True.
So after Miami, we went to New York. We did a 3-day course on technical analysis there, okay, in Wall Street. And then we flew back to Dubai. I then opened the Bitcoin world because I realized the name Global Institute of Wealth, right, which I started in South Africa. I was like, doesn't have the name Bitcoin, and all you want to talk about is Bitcoin. So I changed the name to the Bitcoin world. Um, the domain was not available. Someone had the domain, from 2010 in Switzerland, and I managed to
Yeah.
reach out to him and got it. That was another milestone, just getting the .com. It was like a negotiation. I was being sneaky about it. I was sending it from my Gmail, not so he doesn't know my LinkedIn profile. I was like,
Yeah.
acting like a youngster, and I felt like, you know, it was a good tactic, and I managed to get it for a really good amount, right? It was like, and I feel, today I own quite a few domains, okay, which I think like the bitcoinworld.com, the bitcoinplanet.com, Dubai Mall Bitcoin.com. I own Dubai Airport Bitcoin. I believe, people will search these names in the future. Okay.
Hmm.
But getting to the business now, entrepreneurship is like they say, jumping off a cliff and building the aeroplane on the way down. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, it's been a crazy journey because I never imagined in my life ever having this office, having, this company name or this domain, being in the seat, meeting the people like you, like you've been to our office. Okay.
Yeah.
And
I loved it.
yeah, I think, the office is one thing, you get immune to it after a month or two, okay, the view and whatnot. But being in this location, opposite the Burj, opposite Dubai Mall, the the thinking behind it for me was this is one of the most visited places on the planet Earth at the moment. Okay, there's been over 100 million people last year visiting Dubai Mall. Okay,
Yeah.
so the other thing is, if you put the word Bitcoin into Google Trends, okay, you can see that every time the price of Bitcoin goes up, more people in the world search the word Bitcoin, right? And having the name, the Bitcoin world, my mindset was people from anywhere in the world that would search, in Dubai, Bitcoin, your SEO would be very good. Okay.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
let's come back to, what are we doing with the business? Um, we just want to orange pill people because that's what we love to do. Okay. But how do you formalize that? So obviously you've got under DIFC a whole regulatory authority called VARA, right? And VARA has an advisory service license, like they've got other categories. Okay. Many people want to be a broker or a exchange service. We've decided to go and, carve a niche in the advisory service. So we managed to get initial approval on our application. We're busy with the main part of the application. This is a
Hmm.
milestone for us, even just to get the initial approval, right? So just
Yeah.
pray that everything goes smooth. And um, moving on from that is we want to be the go-to advisory service for any family office, ultra high net worth individual, and maybe above a family office, you're going to get like government entities or you're going to get sovereign wealth. Yes, that's a bit, extreme to reach up to that, but someone's going to have to consult. So let's look at if you're a family office and you have a board, okay?
Yeah.
You could have a specialist. Let's for the listeners out there, right? Family offices are families that have multiple businesses. So they have this office where they have a board. Maybe they own 20, 30 properties. They own 20, 30 businesses. They have multiple, maybe aeroplanes or assets or yachts or whatnot. So the family office controls this. Now, having someone on your board, you'd have someone advising you on equities, on shares, right? That would be a specialist. You'd have someone advising you on your properties, studying the property market, the prices all around the world, whatnot. And we sit and we, we scribbled a lot on the drawing board and on the wall for many months. And we said, listen, how are the family offices going to move into crypto? Who are they going to bring onto their board? Okay. They're going
Yeah.
to have someone that's certified, that has some reputation, some credibility. So, what we've done here, and me personally, is we managed to get an MIT certification on crypto. We've got a Sailor Academy on Bitcoin. We founded the company, the Bitcoin World. We have moved to the perfect location, which Dubai, for me, is now the center of the world. Many people will
Yeah.
agree, especially after COVID. The amount of Europeans that are flocking here and ultra high net worth individuals. And then we've positioned the business in the right place. And while we have applied to VARA for the advisory service license, so we've ticking the boxes to become that position that as soon as family offices realize that they need someone specializing in crypto to sit on their boards, we'd be the first choice.
The
And
first choice. Yeah.
and that's what we're trying to create, right? Trying to create value, and the money will follow after, right? As a business,
So building on that, my first question would be, okay, so what is the first point of contact? Is it the family offices that realize that they need Bitcoin for some reason, or is it you guys, talking to family offices representatives and try to educate slowly, step by step, on why is it important, etc. Like, what are the first reactions? I want to get us the understanding of this very specific group of people, because just to make one short step back, there's a lot of people also because of this, regular media, mainstream media, that is attracted to Bitcoin or crypto in order to get quickly rich. And that's definitely not the right approach. And that's definitely not the approach of the family offices, because they typically already have the wealth. So
Yes.
their main job is to grow it and preserve, basically. So they have got a very different mindset, right? So what attracts them to this kind of assets that are being presented, as I mentioned, by a lot of people, probably in the wrong way, or at least not precisely?
So can I speak about it from our business point of view? Our
Yeah, sure.
slogan, in fact, is preserving wealth for future generations. That's our
Yeah.
slogan. And my question to all family offices is, if you have $100 million and you have enough time to do research, like Michael Saylor went to his board and put out the question, right, that we got this 460 million. So if they got 150 million, but they have only they can only make one choice, whether to buy bonds, whether to buy gold, whether to buy Apple shares, or equities or property. Why, if they had to go and study all the options, I'm confident that they'd come to the conclusion that Bitcoin is the hardest money to preserve their wealth for the next generation over the 100 years. And what we're saying is, hi guys, we are here. We've done 2,000 hours of research. Okay. We went and done the courses. We've read the books. We've been to the events. We've got podcasts. We've interviewing the leading people in the industry. So you don't have to do all the research, right? Like any other consultant, you go to a lawyer because he's got years of knowledge, or you go to a medical practitioner, a specialist like a cancer specialist is here. So I'm over 8 years in crypto, and we're going to summarize this and tell you, listen, if you put what you call money, okay, or your wealth, right, into Bitcoin today, okay, over the next 100 years, this would be the best performing asset, right? And if you need explanation why we came to this conclusion, yes, we can do that. But let's go back to something, especially after COVID, right? A lot of investments have failed in the last 10 years. Let's call it 10 years. Banks like Credit Suisse have also gone into liquidation,
Yeah.
right? There's been banks failing in Silicon Valley last year. Okay, so literally
Across the
the
board. Across the board.
across the board, the economic system of the world is broken. The money is broken. And when we say the money is broken, understand that almost all 190 somewhat countries, okay, price their imports, exports, their balance sheets, their debt in dollars. And the dollar itself is a broken reserve currency. Okay. So people need to see this, zoom out, and understand that, say, it's like, imagine you work the whole year and you save your money and into wheat, or you save your money into bread. We'd say that's a soft form of money. Okay,
Yeah.
it can get rotten, it can get broken. Now I know this sounds very childish or simple, and family offices want to be very, use big words, but Bitcoin is simple. Okay, there's a limited supply. Okay, there's only 21 million ever going to be produced, right?
Yeah.
And nobody with a big checkbook can tear a check and create more Bitcoin. Like, it's fixed in production. We're currently at 400 Bitcoin a day. Okay, that means no sovereign wealth fund family office can just bribe someone and acquire more from a factory.
Or just
Once you
make
start
more
to,
pressure, or just even make more pressure
or
on
increase the
mining
production.
mining Bitcoin pace.
Exactly. I think the world, became so used to, if you have money, you can buy anything. Okay. If you have money, you can buy arms, you can pay off armies. Okay. The second thing is, in history, whether you had land, you had oil under the ground, or gold under the ground of your country, right? You needed to spend a lot on your army to protect those assets.
True.
Okay. So imagine a country like Saudi Arabia, who has oil underground. They are, I think, they spend the most, one of the biggest spend on military, right, to protect that oil underground. Now, once you realize that you could have, like Michael Saylor or MicroStrategy, 250,000 Bitcoin, what is your cost to save that Bitcoin or to protect that Bitcoin? It's almost zero, right? Why? It's digital. The other interesting point I'm going to talk about is numbers, right? So numbers. There's 75 million dollar millionaires in the world. There's not enough Bitcoin for each of those dollar millionaires to own one. Now, the thing is, they haven't realized they need Bitcoin yet. Okay. Now, when you walk around Dubai, it's like almost every second person wears a Rolex watch. It's so funny. Okay. It's really so funny that almost every second
True.
person you see that, gets into some money wants to have a Rolex watch to feel some sense of achievement. Look, that's psychology. What happens is, when those 75 million dollar millionaires realize, shit, everyone's buying this asset, whether it's a Rolex watch, a Birkin handbag, a diamond, for their wife. Okay, they need at least one Bitcoin. No dollar millionaire wants to own a quarter of a Bitcoin or a half a Bitcoin. They
True.
want one Bitcoin. So that alone tells you there's not enough supply. On the other hand, 19.5 million or 19.7 million Bitcoin have already been,
Yeah.
produced
Recent.
and are owned by someone.
Exactly.
Okay.
I mean, there's going to
Now
be a
let's.
big shock and big supply shock once people realize, like the remaining, I would say 90% of the world wakes up to this call and just say, okay, I need to get one, or at least a part of it. That's a massive potential that's still ahead of us.
I
True.
think, psychology. It's not a topic I speak about often, but I mean, now that you bring it up, psychology is so important. So even the number 100,000. So people in the Bitcoin space that understand psychology said that once Bitcoin passes the figure of 100,000, it would wake up a lot of people. Like, because at the moment, whether it's 42 or 49 or 69, people are
Doesn't
not paying
matter.
attention.
Yeah.
Okay. But once it passes 100,000, you're going to get this ultra wealthy people that wake up and say, hold on, what the hell is this? Right. And I've got such a interesting thing to bring to the listeners or share with you. People on Instagram and Twitter were so excited this week that gold is at an all-time high of like
Yeah.
$2,500. So I just went and I scribbled on a page, and it's just lying on my desk. Okay, I looked at gold. Okay, 2,500, it's all-time high. What was it 10 years ago? It was $1,500. Okay, 10 years ago. Bitcoin today is 59,000. What was it 10 years ago? $400. So gold has gone up 60% in 10 years. Okay.
Yeah.
But Bitcoin's gone up 14,800% in 10 years. Okay.
Yeah.
I think, people need to, take pen, take paper, start writing these numbers down, start studying it, looking at it visually, right? I'm going to hop back to something else because I left out this part when we spoke about $75 million millionaires. There's 6,500 family offices in America alone. Okay. These 6,500 family offices have a minimum of $150 million upwards to anything over $1 billion. Okay.
Yeah.
There's one family office in UAE, which last year, the P&L, their profit, was over $5 billion. Okay. What we fail to understand as Bitcoiners even is that we celebrate Michael Saylor. We, understand him. He explains it well. But there's thousands or hundreds of thousands of people that have more wealth than Michael Saylor.
Yeah.
Okay. And those are, what would you refer it to? Like, sleeping dragons. Okay. What
Yeah,
happens
the
when...
whales to be, the whales to be.
Okay, let me listen to you. How do you see it?
I mean, I believe the upside potential, as I mentioned, is just enormous for the next 10 to 12, 20 years. I would say that the next decade should be a decade of institutional adoption, or even shorter frame, even 5 years. The next 5 years should be a decade, should be years of massive institutional adoption. And behind every business there's people, right? So if they don't
I
believe
also say
it,
that.
they will not buy it. But so then if we are already on the rails of institutional adoption, that means those people will buy for themselves as well, just as Michael does, right? So he recently made an interview and he shared that he probably owns like at least $1 billion in Bitcoin, right? He personally, right? So then
Okay.
you can imagine all those other people doing at least the same amounts, and there's plenty of them all around the globe. And as you mentioned, people are realizing with a broader, I would say, spectrum of information that is available those days, with a much quicker access to the information, that the money is broken and that there are some alternatives, and that those alternatives are actually battle tested, and they've been proven to be as good as it's necessary for institutional adoption, which is the highest grade of the requirements, I would say, in general, right? So I think we're on a track to massive upward potential, and at some point, once we probably go over the gold market cap, the growth potential
of 12 trillion, yeah.
Exactly. Then the
No, I
growth
just
potential
wanted to share the number, yeah.
will just flatten, but it's natural, because then we will actually discover the true price of Bitcoin. Because I still believe that we're in a price discovery mode, and we will be for a while. So that's my view on the perspectives here. But I wanted to ask you also about the recent events in Dubai, actually. So Phoenix Group, together with Tether, decided to introduce dirham
Stablecoin.
uh, dirham stablecoin. Exactly. So the first stablecoin is going to be pegged to the dirham value. How do you think that this could affect the market, your business, people understanding of the crypto space and eagerness to actually join this movement?
Okay, so when we opened our business, we have a website, we're on Google Maps. Okay, uh, what happened is people started knocking our door, okay, and walk in requesting to buy USDT or sell
Yeah.
USDT. Okay, because this is such a cosmopolitan place and you have so many international people flying here. What happens is we found that 80, 90% of people knocking our door didn't want to even talk about Bitcoin as much as read the Bitcoin world. They came asking, listen, can you help me, sell my USDT for dirhams? Okay.
Yeah.
And that's not what I set out to do. Okay. So what we did then, and I'll get to your question. What we did then is sign up as a broker for OTCs. Okay. Not just in Dubai. We've signed up to be the Bitcoin world has agreements in over 46 countries right now with OTCs. Okay. So
Okay.
that's another additional service to our company. We have advisory service and we are also OTC brokers. Now, why I'm explaining that is things, in my opinion, Bitcoin will always be your investment, go to as an investment, right? But your transactional, let's call that your savings account, your investment account. But when you transact daily, if you like you're traveling right now, you in Egypt, you you it you would spend USDT easier
Yeah.
because even if this mug or the hotel room you're staying in would be priced in dollars, okay,
Yeah.
uh, Egypt itself had very a lot of inflation. The currency has been dropping a lot. Okay, so the easiest thing for a country, whether it's Zimbabwe, Venezuela, Nigeria, is just to take everything that's in their local currency, all items and services, and price it into dollars. Okay,
Yeah.
so now you've got the nomadic people like you and I, we in this day of age where everything is digital. Okay, you traveling, you can carry your emails with you. You got your phone, your photos with you. If you lose your iPhone, for example, right? All you got to do in Egypt, buy a new iPhone, enter your iCloud, and you're going to retrieve all your data. Now, the same should be with your money, right? You should be able to download an app with your wallet, enter your username. I'm talking about a soft wallet, not a hard wallet. Okay.
Yeah.
And your money should be with you. You'd spend in USDT. So coming back to what you're saying about the UAE getting a stable coin, this is excellent for crypto adoption. Okay. In my opinion. Why?
Mhm.
People then can move away from traditional finance and traditional banks. Okay. Because traditional banks are built on what we call the interest model, right, of debt, fractional
Mhm.
reserve. So,
Fractional reserve model.
fractional reserve. So the banks do not actually have the money that's deposited into the bank, right? So if you deposit a
Yeah.
million dollars, I deposit $1 million, they don't really hold this money. And they borrow up to maybe 10 million on our million deposit,
Yeah.
right? So the other thing is the traditional banking and the traditional finance is very centralized. So that leaves a window of opportunity for fraud. Okay. And, the largest Ponzi scheme in the world was committed by Bernie Madoff. Now ask
Yeah.
yourself, who was Bernie Madoff? And I mean, there was not a more trustworthy person because he was the chairman of the stock exchange in
Yeah.
Was it Wall Street or New York? Right.
Wall Street.
At that time. I mean, where in the world would you find a better CV? If you're going to tell me, I need to trust you or you need to trust me, you look at the credentials. And Bernie
Sure.
Madoff pull the largest Ponzi in the world. So that tells you whenever humans, okay, there's a, what would you call it? I'm looking for the word. There's this element of failure because humans are humans. They're not robots and they can fail. And this is where Bitcoin separates itself from cryptocurrencies. We need people to understand that all
Yeah.
other cryptocurrencies, okay, has a CEO, has a marketing team, has a head office. They
Run
could
by
fail,
people.
run
Yeah.
by people. They could fail. They could commit fraud. They could do multiple mistakes. Okay. Whereas Bitcoin runs on an algorithm. Okay. It's running on code. And if it was going to fail, it would have failed in the first year, the first 5 years, or the first 10 years. Right. And the other day when we had Microsoft had a glitch and the entire world that was running Microsoft, even airports, the screens were all down. But as I said, tick tock, next block. Every 10 minutes, the blockchain of Bitcoin, was closed and the next block was opened. And that proved once again, okay, that Bitcoin cannot be switched off. The
Yeah.
previous example of that was when, China banned Bitcoin mining and majority of mining was happening in, the China space. Every transaction still happened. It just got diverted to different nodes around the world.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question, or should we explain more on the
No,
stablecoin?
no, I think it's a bunch of excellent points, and I believe that the dirham will get stablecoin dirham will get people accustomed to this space, even those that were not initially native and basically they're accustomed to still like paying with cash. I think this is going to be the transfer of the mindset into the more digital space, and therefore hopefully eventually they find Bitcoin along the way as a store of value for their wealth and for the preservation of their wealth. So I believe that Dubai is absolutely at the forefront. We touched upon that a couple of times, and I really appreciated you explaining the whole journey that you've been through. And I cannot wait to get back, to be honest, and I cannot wait to meet in person and also to see this word thriving, because I believe, as you mentioned, that this is becoming the center of the world. Everyone's eyes are on Bitcoin in terms of the blockchain space and blockchain and Bitcoin community those days. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
I think when we zoom out, okay, I like to tell people we in the early days of Nokia, like when we had a Nokia phone and the
Yeah.
phone could really do nothing. And I had a client here the other day, another Bitcoin, and he says, no, we're not even in the cellular phone stage. We're in like the pager, you had these things like a pager. But my point being that in 1997, there was very few people that had, mobile phones. You had to be, in a very small niche. But today, who doesn't have a mobile phone? So
Sure.
you need to look at the numbers again. 8 billion people. There's about 5 billion mobile phones. Okay. And almost all of them are moving from the traditional phones of just, Nokia style to smartphones.
The smartphones,
And
yeah.
that then allows all 5 billion people to have, example, email, Instagram, Facebook, and a smart wallet. Okay. So you got to realize that majority of the world is unbanked. If you look at Africa, there's 54 countries. People live remotely. They cannot walk to a bank. They don't even have an identification card to open a bank account. They don't even have a proof of residence. What happens, right? Let's talk about this, Jakub. I know the podcast is going over the limit, but there's so much to talk about Bitcoin.
True.
What happens when another country like El Salvador adopts Bitcoin?
Yeah.
Then what? What happens if a third country adopts it? What happens, as I said, when 5 people, wealthier than Michael Saylor, buy Bitcoin? So,
That's highly
you know,
probable. That's just in front of us, but it's happening. Like the patience is and the time here is the key, and it just plays to our advantage. So I'm super excited for the future, and I'm very happy to have you, Muhammad. Really enjoyed our conversation
uh,
and all the thoughts and sharing your journey. I think it's an incredible, and I hope you all the best with orange pilling all the people that are close
thank
to
you.
you and
And
all
we're
the
waiting for you
clients.
at our office and hope we can have, more conversations or more podcasts in future because there's so many different aspects of Bitcoin to talk about.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you once again.
Thank you. Enjoy.